Hello everybody and welcome back to our Python programming course. And in the previous section what we did is we covered some of the basics of coding in Python, such as for loops, while loops, if statements and so on. We also introduced ourselves with different types of variables, strings, integers, floats. We saw how we can convert one to another. Basically what we did are basics. Right now we're going to go into some more intermediate stuff, which is functions. Now, what functions allow us to do is, for example, once you actually start coding some larger programs that have some part of a program that will actually repeat itself throughout the code itself, you want to create a function that will do that certain part. That's how you can actually call that function every time you need it without coding the same part of the program twice or multiple times. So, we're going to introduce ourselves in this section with different functions. I will show you how you can make a function, how you can create useful functions, and also we're going to take a look at some of the coding examples after we cover the basics of the functions. Now those coding examples of course won't really be anything special, they're going to be simple programs, but for now on that will be more than enough. So let us start up. We are going to open up our idle as usual. So just type idle, open the idle for Python 3. And basically, we already introduced ourselves with some of the functions in the previous section. We just didn't, if you are a beginner, you probably just didn't know they were functions, such as, for example, the length function, the range function, the print function, the string function, integer, and those functions that we did in the basics of programming. Now, for example, once you type print, and then in between the brackets you type here, hello, you basically call a function called print. And what you specified in between the brackets are the parameters to that function. So I'll show you basically, let's say we want to create our own length function. So for example, we have a string that is going to equal, let me just find, okay, so equal hello. This is our string. It is a variable that stores this word. If you just type your string, you can see it is right here. And we know that the length of the string will return the number of characters in that specific word. So let us see how we can actually return the number of the characters in this specific word without using the length function. Now we can use different functions, but we cannot use the length function. But before we actually do that, let me show you how you can define a function itself. So for example, let us create a function, let us create our own printing function. So we don't want to use print and then something. We want to, for example, use my underscore print, and then in between the brackets we specify what we want to print. So in order to define the function with a specific name, you just type here def and space, and then you type the name of the function that you want to create. In our case, let us say we want to create my underscore print. So this is the name of our function, and that function will take, a parameter of the string itself. So string right here. Now don't worry, I will explain everything twice so you don't get confused. Now this is basically the parameter that we are going to paste to this function, and then once you press here enter, you can see that the code will become indent. That means that you're coding the part of the function itself. So right here we want to create print, and then we want to print the actual string. So print string. We press here enter, and there we have our own function. So right now if we just type here if we create a string 1 to be equal to let's say football, okay, and instead of using print and then string 1 in the brackets, we can right now use my underscore print and then string 1 between the actual brackets. We will get the same result right here. This is because we created our own print function that actually uses the print function itself that is inbuilt in the Python in order to print the string. Now this is not really anything useful, but this is just an example of how you can define a simple function. Now, there are different types of functions. This one specifically was the one with the parameter, since we specified something in the brackets themselves. Now, you can specify a function that doesn't have any parameter in it. For example, let's say you want to create a function that will always print hello world. So def hello underscore world underscore print. Now you can call it anything you want. I just call it like this. And in between the brackets, we don't specify anything. We add the 2 dots after the brackets. And now we want to code the part of the function that will always print hello world. So 2 single quotes and then hello world. Now we have a hello world print function that every time once we call it, so you can see right here, if I just type here hello underscore world world underscore print and add the closed and open brackets, you can see it will print hello world. Now, once again, this is not a useful function. This is just an example. As I said before, the functions will be used once you need to cover a large part of the program that you will reuse later on, so you don't actually type it twice or multiple times. That's when you use a function. Right here we saw 2 different examples of a function with the parameter specified that we paste into the code of the function itself, as you can see right here. And one of those is the one that doesn't even have any parameters. It just does simple work such as printing hello world. It doesn't need to take any parameter needed. So right now let us see how we can actually return from the function. So sometime you actually want to return something from a specific function. Let's say our function is a little bit larger now, so let us actually code something useful. For example, let me just open a new file. And right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to import a library that we used before, which is the random library. Now, what I'm going to do in this program is I will pick a random integer between 1 and 5, and then I will print a different statement for each number that the actual random library picks. We will do that using a function, and then we will print the actual string. Now, let me show you. So we imported the random library. You remember the actual random.rand integer function that we used before, which will generate our random number for us. But before we actually do that, we need to code the function that we're going to use. Now, functions are almost always coded at the beginning of the program, and then down below you're going to code the actual program that will call those functions. So first of all, we need to code the function. Define get number. And what this function will take as an input is a number. Simple as that. Now, since we don't really know what we want to code for now on, we're just going to leave it right here, and we're going to code the rest of the program right now, and we are then going to go back to this function and code it appropriately. So, we want to first of all generate a random number, so we're going to use a random underscore number variable, which is going to take a random number using the random library. So random.rand integer. We're going to take a number from 1 to 5, as it says right here, return random integer in range A to B, including both endpoints. So 1, 5, we want a number between those 2 values. Then, what we're going to do is we're going to call this function and store its value into a certain variable. So what we're going to do is we're going to call a variable pick. So pick will be equal to get number from the random number. Now, if you're confused, don't worry. I'm going to show you right now what we're going to do, and then we're going to print our pick. So this is the actual entire part of the lower program. All we're left to do is actually to code the function itself. Now, what we're going to do right here is we're going to use an else if statement in order to check out what number we got between 1 and 5. So we paste the actual number or the random number to the function right here. So make sure once you actually paste the random number to the function, you need to use the actual word that you specified between the brackets. So you can't really use random number right here. You need to use number, since that is what we specified between the brackets. Now, between the brackets, we could have specified anything, such as, for example, number 1, 2, 3, and then we would have to use a variable called number 1, 2, 3. But for now on, we're just going to use number. So, if our number that we picked from the random integer between 1 and 5 is equal to 1, what we're going to do is we're going to use our return from the function, and what we're going to return is we're going to return a string. So return, and we can use it, the number is 1. This is what we are going to return. So if the number that was picked was equal to 1, the actual value that would return into this pick variable right here would be the number is 1, since that is what we are returning to this variable. Now, if the number, or else if the number is equal to 2, we're going to return the number is 2. Simple as that. It's really not that hard to understand. Now we're going to do this for the for every possible outcome. So 3, return the number is 3. We are left to do 2 more. So else if number equals 4, return the number is 4, and we are left the 5. So else if number equals 5. Now you don't need to use else if right here. You can also use else, since this is the last actual available option, but it doesn't even matter. We can also use else if. So else if the number is equal to 5, we're going to return the number is 5. So this is our entire program. Basically, let us go over the code once again. We imported the library. We created a random number using the random library with the rand integer function. The random number will take a value between 1 and 5, depending on what the program picks. Then we create a pick variable that will call this function and store its value of the outcome to this pick variable right here. And then we print the pick variable. So simple as that. If we run it, okay, so it must be saved. Let us actually create an actual folder for our program. So Python programs on our desktop. We can paste it right here. And then what we are going to do is I'm going to save this. So save as desktop, Python programs. And then we can call it first function.py. Doesn't even matter, call it anything you want as long as it has .py extension. Save it right here. And then we can actually call it, so run module. We call it right here. And the output is the number is 3. So the random library generated a number 3. And therefore, our pick actually got the value of the number is 3. Then we printed our pick variable and we got that string. So we can run it once again. You can see it is once again 3. Now it is 1. Now it is 5. So our program works really well. We successfully generated the random numbers and also printed out while returning from the function. So this return variable, or pardon me, this return function right here is also very useful. It can return different variables depending on the outcome of your function code, as we saw right here. Now the function can also be non-type, as we saw before. It can basically return nothing. So the function doesn't have to return anything from it. It can just perform a simple task. The most simple example I can show you of that is basically just creating a variable. Let us call it simply just variable, and using an already inbuilt function which is going to print something. So print, and we print here football. Now variable basically doesn't store anything. If you just type variable right here equals to none, what will pop out is it will say it is true, since our variable really didn't store anything, since the print function doesn't return anything from it. Same as this one right here. Let me just show you. So this my print function also will not return anything, since we're only using the print function and we don't have the return specified anywhere in our code. So variables can also be non-type once you actually use it from a function. So that is also something useful. Now this really doesn't make any sense, but this is just an example of showing you that the function doesn't really have to return anything from its code. So that would be about it for this tutorial. We're going to code different stuff and we're going to introduce ourselves with different things in the next lecture. So hope you enjoyed this simple short tutorial and I hope I see you in the next lecture. Bye!